Welcome to Uruk's Hollow!
Welcome back everyone, this is Uruk's Hollow and today I bring you my fourth and final video in my tutorial series for Captain Crafting in Shadow of Mordor. In this video I will show you how you can remove any fears and vulnerabilities from captains and war chiefs and effectively create Uruks with absolutely no weaknesses. Many people have been asking me about my nemesis, Tars the Duelist. He has no weaknesses and this is not entirely a thing by chance. In this video I will show you how I crafted him so you can have an Uruk who is like him. Unlike on my previous tutorials, for this time I will elaborate thoroughly on everything you need so all details are clear. The most important thing you need is the Lord of Mordor campaign mission is still available. For many people this means an entirely new save, but getting to this point in the game takes like 3 or 4 hours, so it won't take too much of your time. For the best results here, make sure you can still make captains cheat death when you reach this point, so try avoiding killing any captains before this mission. This also means we can only use this trick once per playthrough, so choose wisely who you want to buff. For this trick, you can use any Uruk that is not branded. I recommend you get a captain. War chiefs can also be used, but the results are different. We want to make our Uruk return from the death, and war chiefs don't do that, so a captain is always a better option. For the best results, you want to have an Uruk with these two traits, Combat Master and Invulnerable to Ranged. If your captain has these traits, you can make him have no weaknesses at all. If he doesn't have either of those, you can still use the Uruk, but he won't be as good. There are many titles that have Combat Master as a permanent trait, like Warmonger, Thunderhead and Bloodstorm. Coward and similar titles happen to have all 4 immunities and they make great candidates for this trick. Do not worry if your captain has Vulnerable to Stealth or Beasts or any kind of fear trait. When we put him through this trick, he will completely lose those. Another trait that is great for Nemesis but not necessary to make a perfect Uruk is Fearless. If you happen to find an Uruk with the 3 traits that I mentioned, you will be able to create a monster. For the best results, you want to bring with you Uruks with fire traits, like Flaming Weapon or Explosive Arrow. This is an optional one, but I definitely recommend it. If your captain does not have Hate of Burns, he will end up getting a hint trait for explosions. So we bring these fiery followers to blast out Uruk and make him hate fire. If you're buffing a war chief, followers with fire are irrelevant. And as usual I recommend a backup, but it is not necessary for anything, just a safety. This is a Skak halfling lover. He will help me demonstrate this trick today. He is only level 5 right now and his traits are really bad as one would expect. Vulnerable to combat finishers, stealth, beasts, feet of Caragors and Graugs. I know for a fact that he will be Combat Master as he levels up because I looked at him in the forge. His fears and vulnerability to stealth are also permanent. There is something I will explain here real quick. As soon as an Uruk gets promoted, the game decides what will be his vulnerabilities and invulnerabilities at higher levels. It doesn't matter how many times I reforge and level up Skak, he will always have Combat Master and Vulnerable to Stealth. But we want to get rid of his weaknesses and that is exactly what we will do in this video. So the first thing you want to do is activate the return trigger on your Uruk. You do this by letting him kill you twice and it should work just fine as long as your attempts are not spent already. I have a tutorial about this other trick if you want more information on it. This step is completely irrelevant if you're trying to buff a war chief, so ignore this part if so. Once you're done with that, you want to make sure he is your nemesis with the highest score. The score is determined by your interactions with him and can be easily increased by marking him as target a bunch of times. This value is hidden, so you will have to guess it. The next thing you want to do is launch the Lord of Mordor mission, and this is where things start getting interesting. This mission forcibly removes any fears and mortal weaknesses and adds Invulnerable to Stealth, Beast Slayer and Battle Hardened to your nemesis. It also removes Combat Master, but you don't have to worry about that, as it will come back on its own after the mission. Notice how Skak can no longer even be damaged by stealth attacks, despite that being his mortal weakness at high levels as determined by the game. So Skak does not have Hate of Burns, so I brought with me a couple of fire archers to burn him. This can result in either of two things. He gets Hate of Burns as intended, or he gets Fear of Burns, since he is not fearless. Because he lacks this trait, he has a 50-50 chance of getting a fear instead of a hate. So if your Uruk is like this, I recommend you use a backup, just in case. If your Uruk is a war chief, he will not get any new traits, as war chiefs cannot cheat death. After completing the mission, there are two things you can do. The first one is quit and go to the forge. This is a necessary thing to do if your nemesis was a war chief, or if you had depleted your return triggers already. Even if your Uruk is dead in campaign, he will show up here because his spot hasn't been taken by anyone yet. And the second thing is to simply roam around until your nemesis shows up again, if you still had return triggers available. In both cases, your Uruk will have gained 2 levels. This might add Combat Master back in if their level is high enough. If not, just level them up again. If your Uruk had the traits I mentioned before, and you also burned him, then you have effectively created a captain with no weaknesses. But what if your nemesis was already level 20 at the time of the Lord of Mordor confrontation? If this is the case, then he will not get Combat Master back when he returns. But there is a way to fix that. What you want to do here is exploit the bug I showed you in the 3rd tutorial to collect your captain's level beyond 20. Very quickly he will regain Combat Master. So here are the important things to know before trying this. If your Uruk resides in Norden, you can check if he cheated death and what trait he got from doing so without having to finish the Lord of Mordor mission. Just grab one of your followers and you can see the Norden army screen. If you see bad traits, like Fear of Burning, you can quit the mission and go back in. There is a very interesting side effect that occurs from doing this. Because Lord of Mordor raises your captain's rank to War Chief for this mission, when he returns he will have the characteristic that his health will never go green. Unless you terrify him, of course. But if your captain is fearless, then he will be completely unbreakable. The only way to brand him will be to get him on his knees. Combat Master is not the only trait that Lord of Mordor removes. Monolith determined that captains with Hate of Pain or Defeat are too strong for this fight, so these traits also disappear, sadly. Other traits that are also removed include Summoner, Tracker, Sniffer, and Humiliator. Any trait that is removed but was tied to the captain's title will come back when he levels up. Lord of Mordor does not remove hint traits. If your Uruk does not have Combat Master or invulnerable to ranged, they will get a hint instead. As I mentioned before, if your captain already has Hate of Burns, you don't need to kill him with fire, so you can give him whatever scar you want. War Chiefs do not return or gain traits from dying. All this trick will do to them is remove their fears and vulnerabilities. Remember, you can also use all my other tutorials to more carefully customize your Uruks if you want to do so. I have tutorials on how to control their personality, physical appearance, colors, traits, and of course how to give them scars. I used all of this to create Tars just as he is, except for colors. In case you are wondering, it took me about 15 hours to fully craft Tars. I am sure some people have been grinding for longer trying to find their perfect Uruks, so I hope this helps greatly anyone who is still trying. And that is all you need to know to craft the best Uruk for you to bring as your nemesis or as your follower to Shadow of War. Before we wrap this up, I want to thank everyone who watches this channel and helps make it grow every day. It has been an amazing year in which I've learned a lot. I have done everything I wanted to do in Shadow of Mordor, and the sequel is almost here. I look forward to bringing you the best videos for this anticipated new game. Thank you so much for everything. We will see you in Shadow of War.